Hello and welcome to the second season of the AUA Focus Series, a podcast channel by the AUA Media Lab. My name is Aram Hajian, and I'm Associate Professor and Program Chair of the Master of Science program in Computer and Information Science here at the Hajian College of Science and Engineering at AUA. Also, Associate Director of the Engineering Research Center. And I'm very pleased to introduce my guest today, Dr. Barry Levine, Professor Emeritus in Computer Science at San Francisco State University. Hello, Barry.
Hello, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back to Armenia. Welcome back to AUA. Before we begin, let me just do a quick biographical sketch to give a little context, and then we'll launch right into our conversation. Dr. Levine's interests currently focus on e-health, health informatics, and he has led numerous global and graduate student projects in that area. Back in 2001, he created the CIS program here at AUA, and where he served as director of the program for a full decade. Other projects included serving as a lead for the African Virtual University World Bank project, as well as department chair for his home department, the CS department at SFSU in San Francisco. So yeah, Barry, it's great to see you again. As I said, always welcome here at AUA. Why don't we begin? Tell us about your first trip, if you will, to Armenia, to the university. What were your motivations and what were the outcomes from that trip?
Well, I came here as a member of the International Executive Service Corps, which is essentially a peace corps for retired executives. And it's important because they have the wisdom and they want to participate and share their expertise with the world and not just retire. They brought me here to help a project going with a company run by Hovhannes Savoyan, who's well known in Armenia, is a very, very successful entrepreneur. And I was asked to help in terms of business advertising, which I have no knowledge about. But in any case, they said, come here anyways. So I came here and then I helped with the company, with the workers there, as well as providing a couple of lectures at AUA. That was my introduction to AUA.
So yeah, that's a fascinating introduction and maybe an atypical or unusual kind of intro to meet us as a university. But I think if I'm not mistaken, at some point along the way, you met Armen Der Kiureghian, a founder of AUA, a founding dean in the college as well. And can you talk a little bit about meeting him with any ideas to create a master's program in computer science?
I should say this worked beautifully, this relationship. I first met Dr. Der Kiureghian at his home when he asked me to assist in examining the creation of the CIS program. And I felt joyful for being able to have this opportunity. And subsequently, we discussed the creation and the path to creating the program. And that involved me working directly with him. And it was an absolute pleasure to do that because we just worked extremely well together. And that was a large part of the process and being able to, be successful. In fact, it was important to live nearby because we spent many, many hours in developing the program together. And in fact, the first time I came here, he took me here to meet folks in the local industry and other universities to make sure that we had a place in the Armenian sector, the IT sector, and from me getting to know the local landscape here.
Yeah, very important. I think the contextual environment, both academic as well as you said, the industry, and then AUA itself was a very different place, a much smaller place, smaller footprint than what we see today. I think a handful of master's programs at the time. The College of Engineering, as it was then called, I know had an industrial engineering program, but there was a lot of desire from, as you mentioned, even different fronts. for the creation of computer science. What were some of the challenges, goals, or kind of what experience did you draw from in that respect, in terms of specifically what you were facing in terms of conjuring up really a master's program in computer and information science that, in your estimation, would be a high value added program to that very environment?
Sure, there were challenges, and many opportunities. The first thing I should mention is the contribution by Sam and Sylvia Simonian, donating $1.25 million for the creation, development, and running the program. So that essentially provided the budget for most of my time here. Also, what was important was to engage the leaders of other universities, as I mentioned earlier, and the local industry, so we could establish who we were and work very closely together, as well as working with the diaspora to establish the curriculum at the university. Because I have my own ideas, but not having lived in Armenia before and understanding the other universities and what their goals and achievements and interests were, that was a necessary task for me to do. So I did engage the other leaders. It was not only a collaborative development process, but allowed me to form partnerships with many stakeholders, both local and abroad. The challenges included learning the current state of computer science at other Armenian universities, along with the local industry, how to establish budgets. We had the budget from Sam Simonian, but how do we establish a local budget for the program? It's a non-trivial task in any case, but especially not understanding the local industry and things like that. But it was a tremendous amount of work, but I loved it. It was a great opportunity and great people, and getting to know AUA and the associated AUA community was just a wonderful experience. Of course, all the collaborations with Dr. Der Kiureghian was essential, and there were other challenges, like we needed a library. We needed a digital library. And ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery, is the main computer science organization for research, et cetera. And we needed a library, and their digital library of resources, journals, et cetera. I was very upset with that because they could not give us a special price. The price that they gave us to have this library was the same as any developed country where they have the funds to provide a library. So in fact, I spoke with the ACM leadership, and they said, well, what's IEEE doing? Another organization, the top research organization in engineering. And they said, well, what's ACM doing? So neither of them, what essentially they did was support the digital divide. I was very upset with that. Fortunately, one of their staff members told me a way around this restriction, and we used that. So we would how do we hire faculty? So that's another issue. And wanted a mixture of faculty, not just local faculty, but faculty outside of the United States, or the West, I should say, the North, I should say, actually, outside of the North as well as within the North. And so I was able to hire both local and global faculty. And the issue is we paid more than other local universities. So how do we deal with that? Because then they're going to be upset with us poaching their faculty. And so I came up with an idea that will satisfy the departmental needs of the other local universities as well as the faculty. So, and that was instead of paying the faculty member that we hire a salary for X amount of dollars, we would allocate the X amount of dollars, and then part of it goes to the faculty, which is actually more than what they were paid at their home university. And part of it went back to the department. So the department was happy and the faculty were happy. And so that worked very well. I would like to note that Dr. Der Kiureghian and I, again, spent many hours developing the program, budget, hiring faculty, as well as other areas. The work was challenging, exciting, and very worthwhile.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's a pretty comprehensive, I guess, response to a broad question. But I think it's great to touch on so many stakeholders, so many challenges of even identifying best practices, and then implementing those best practices in a very dynamic and developing environment. And along the way, you even touched on a couple of specifics on taking into consideration, local context. And it's not just like bash a square peg into a round hole and, make it fit. But you can even tell from even the short answer and the short conversation, a lot of nuances there, a lot of learning curve, really, and the difficulties of doing something novel, innovative in an environment where there maybe weren't that many other examples to draw upon. So
well, I should mention quickly the more in depth about my previous project just prior to coming to AUA, and that was we mentioned the project with the World Bank, and so we were establishing curriculum in universities around Africa, and we established computer science, computer engineering, electrical engineering because you get the biggest bang for the buck doing that. And so we were going to set up like 20 universities, partner universities in Africa, and being responsible for computer science and working in a global community was a great precursor to the project at AUA.
Yeah, I bet. I think anytime we work on projects which are in some ways similar, maybe in some ways very different, we can draw upon our own, even recent experience and our own iteration on how we approach things. I'm curious, insofar that there are similarities, maybe a big difference might very well be that Armenia has a heritage, or has had this sort of heritage in math, physics, science, even going back to Soviet era, even various satellite, even military industrial complex. And I mean, it has a heritage. So it wasn't like, creating something from scratch, which in some ways is there's a lot to build on. In other ways, maybe it's more difficult because we have to sort of wrap our heads around the input before we embark on this creative endeavor. And any sort of comments on maybe what was surprising to you, or what you found sort of coming to Armenia that first time, or maybe what you might have been able to draw upon in terms of those initial steps?
Well, one very important factor was the collaboration, the atmosphere that I worked in terms of collaboration. So for the African Virtual University World Bank project, I had to work with folks around the world and designing curricula, et cetera. And so that's certainly a very good precursor to working with the AUA project. So that experience was great. It actually, in fact, when that wound down, that's when I met with Armen, and he asked me to start the program here. So the timing was just great.
Fortuitous timing is important in life. Yeah, great. What about, so here's a question. If this entire conversation were about the development of, let's say, a classics program or a program in something in ancient history, we might, and even that's arguable, of course, we might say, okay, we thought hard, we looked at different approaches around the world, we came up with a good solution, and that's it, we're finished. In computer science, 20 years ago feels like 1,000 years ago in some ways, in terms of how fast the world has changed, how fast the field has changed. Any thoughts on, whatever it is that was done, 25, I guess, years ago versus this whole dynamic process of evolution of the field, of the country, any approaches that you feel like are more dynamic in nature as opposed to sort of episodic? You arrived, you and Armen and stakeholders created something, and then you said, okay, our work is finished. I mean, clearly there's a lot of continual effort. And any thoughts about the sort of evolution of the field and correspondingly evolution of the sort of solution, as it were, in terms of a new degree program at AUA?
Well, you always have to have the more or less constants, the theory of computer science, a theory that forms the basis for the what computer science is about. And I won't go into those details. It's a little bit too esoteric for a brief interview. But then you have to be attuned to what's happening in practice. And it's changing actually more rapidly than in university environments. And so you have to allow that. Well, electives take care of that, and getting faculty that would come and visit and demonstrate their experience and keep us in. You always have to keep current in what's happening in the field.
Right. So yeah, that's an important point. I think this sort of keeping something that I think has been critical across many of AUA's degree programs, and in particular here in the Hajian College of Science and Engineering, having this regular stream of different international faculty coming through as visitors, Fulbright, sabbatical, in different capacities, as well as an important, as you mentioned, influence of industry practitioners, teaching many electives, teaching many kind of roll up your sleeves courses in topics where people sort of roll up their sleeves and are doing practitioner, let's call them, courses. This sort of balance is essential.
And I could indicate some of the collaborations that we had to demonstrate what I was doing. First, I became acting chair of computer science during this period, and that gave me an opportunity to actually go in the opposite direction of the norm, which is the norm would be a faculty member in a university in the north, helping out a university in the so-called south. And since I was chair, I had a little bit more control of the program in San Francisco, and I actually hired Armen Der Kiureghian to teach a course for me in San Francisco. And it was an excellent course, and his knowledge, he's been very, very successful, not only as an alumni of AUA, but also in his entrepreneurial ventures. I also worked with the Armenian High-Tech Council of America. So we were involved with them to get a better understanding what the challenges that they saw that people were facing here. We held the first advisory board, set up an advisory board for the program. And those people included, of course, Armen and myself and other folks from industry and academia. I was asked by the IT community in Yerevan to help with the first programming contest, which is a global thing that normally happens to help the environment get energized. I was not only part of the steering committee, but I was asked to develop all of the problems and answers and oversee that. So I know that was an onerous task for me to take that over, but anything I could do to help the community, it was always wonderful coming here and the people I met and the environment that I experienced. And so I was happy to do that. I also had a linkage set between AUA and my home university in San Francisco. The AUA president at the time, Harut Armenian, participated in that along with Armen and myself. We also, a very, very significant event for the program and for AUA is Armen and I met with Donald Knuth, who was one of the main people in the history of computer science based on his research contributions. And he came to Armenia, and he was like an icon here. And so he gave lectures, and we showed him around. He loved his visit. And then I was also able to move the Armenian Virtual Science Library that was established by Sun Microsystems initially in Iraq, move it here. And they provided, I wrote a proposal for equipment to support that, and they funded that.
Well, that sounds like a long list. I know that's only the tip of the iceberg. A lot of different projects, and just hearing the wide range of stakeholders and partners and projects that span continents and even different expertise. It's really remarkable how pervasive, I think, the reach of computer science as a field is, and in your own experience, how many of those experiences you brought to bear on as part of the, augmentation of AUA as a university in its degree programming and direction, as well as specifically in the college. That's great. Barry, if you could speak a little bit about the field of computer science. So to some people, it maybe the IT industry. In this day and age, we hear AI, machine learning a lot. But do you want to talk a little bit about the evolution of the field, either looking backwards or how it's evolved? Let's say of the 2.5 decades that we're really talking about, going back to your first visit here in Armenia at AUA, but in general, even going through today, and maybe looking forward about what are some of the modern tendencies or directions, or your own thoughts on sort of the field and its that sort of dynamicism and the evolution.
That's a very good question, Aram. And I would like to say I feel very passionate about where the field is going. And I was at a roundtable discussion in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and the heads of department were concerned that the students are using AI to cheat, to submit work done by the AI without attributing the AI's factor in the process. And so I think that's the wrong way to go, because AI is here to stay, for better or worse. And it's important to better understand with concerns about ethics and privacy, security, and so on. But it's also important that AI should be used. If you go out into the if students go out to the local industry, it's going to be used. And if they have no exposure to that and thinking about it in those terms, then they're not going to succeed, period. So now, let me just say a few areas that I think that the field is going, not just AI with respect to computer science. I would say computer science plus X, where the X could be humanities, it could be mathematics, it could be engineering, whatever, because that's the way we have to think now. Everybody's using AI. So what do we do to deal with that? Maybe deal with it is not appropriate term, but to engage the use of AI rather than deal. So one idea is that we currently work in many institutions work in the context of silos, meaning that each program runs on its own and they don't want to mix with another program and so on. But that's not how you get success. You have to collaborate with others, and even more so with the advent of AI because of the extent to which AI is being used in practice. And I could say, what I use it every day. I work in e-health right now and health informatics, and I use it every day. It's sometimes for worse. It's sometimes I don't expect to get the results I want immediately. I may have to find ways of expressing what I want clearly to the AI. And that's a challenge in itself. These are what we call prompt engineering, the idea of how do you phrase your questions to get the best responses. And so I would like to see courses in prompt engineering. There are some courses that are out there. I've looked at a course at Vanderbilt University in the United States, and I think we have maybe this is a good opportunity for AUA right now to start offering a prompt engineering course to the undergrads or grads, as well as the community. I think this is a good point to be a leader in this. There's a greater, so I'm thinking, how do I have a course right now, how do I modify that course? We have to think in those terms. The faculty should be thinking in those terms because AI, like I said, AI is here, and how do we embrace AI? So there's a greater emphasis on high-level architecture, for example, rather than programming. For instance, I use Claude, the product by Anthropic, and the major ones are all near me because in San Francisco, that's where I live. So you could see the impacts of those companies very readily. And I also use it I've had graduate students in industry projects, research projects using AI, for instance, using interactive voice recognition. And we're talking, and I had a project in Uganda looking at HIV patients that were alcoholic and providing automated personalized messages with these patients to check on their ongoing process and cutting down on the alcoholism. And so, and in health in general, the idea of AI in medicine is really significant. And who's the experts of AI? Well, computer science department could refocus on those efforts and have to refocus because now we're working together with other departments and collaborations. What I should also what I would like to see perhaps at AUA is working in robotics. That's a big thing these days, and robotics would be very sexy to work on and look at the progress in that, as well as drone technology. In the context of working in projects in Africa, I was talking with a medical school student that I knew at the University of Michigan, and he asked me to review a project he had, maybe there's a major weather event and some villages are not accessible because of the floods and so on. How do they provide health care to these people in these remote locations? And that's relevant in many different situations. It doesn't have to be just in Africa. But so his project proposal was to look at using drones that could actually deliver medications and take lab data, not lab data, but lab items, that are provided by patients back to where they could be examined and so on. So there's this, bioinformatics, finance, the arts, music. My cousin who's a musician but uses AI to generate music and sell music. So of course there's many issues that they have to deal with.
That's fascinating, and in fact, no limits to the list of this sort of impact of AI, and in general, I think a lot of the actually fields where you said I'd like to see it AI. This sort of list is very harmonious, I would say, with a lot of the endeavors underway right now in terms of AUA's own expansion, be that in unmanned aircraft or drone directions, and physical AI, robotics, and a variety of fields, some of which are in science and engineering, but actually even some are outside the sort of digital humanities. And many of the topics you mentioned are great examples where the advances we see tomorrow in these interdisciplinary fields are going to trace back to some of those combinations that were made today.
And it wouldn't be complete without me mentioning some other issues that are surrounding AI. And many people have existential issues with regards. And so there are social impacts of technology, and we do have to consider that. What about ethics in AI? How does the AI make decisions? Is it based on data that it finds on the internet? Well, that data doesn't have to be truthful or correct or robust to provide information. We could look at algorithmic bias, data privacy, for example, for the medical folks, HIPAA issues, privacy issues with patient data, ethics, software ethics. These should become mandatory core courses because of their impacts on society.
Yeah, very important. And that, again, that greater context cannot be ignored, or we ignore at our own risk as a university and as a humanity. Barry, I think the conversation wouldn't be complete without acknowledging and appreciating, thanking you for your continued connection at AUA. I've come to understand that there's a new endowed scholarship that you've established. If you can say a few words about that, and then maybe more broadly, the concept of giving back and giving back to the community, something that maybe started, and we started this whole conversation with your own initial inspiration and opportunity to even come to Armenia. Maybe we're coming full circle if we can talk about this in the context of the scholarship and just your own thoughts as a perspective, as a both faculty member and leader and donor.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to say that I've had a wonderful history with AUA. AUA was working with AUA and the people here has been one of the most challenging and memorable and happy experiences I've had in my life. And I wanted to give back because of that. I feel I have, with respect to the target of this endowed scholarship, which, by the way, the amount that I contribute stays in perpetuity, and it yields interest, and that's what's used for scholarships. And just coming back here, not just in this capacity, but I also arranged a project with Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. And we came here and we're working on several projects, and I help the Children's Hospital introduce health informatics to Armenia. And working with Armenia, the diaspora, the local folks here, and so on, it's always in my thoughts. And I want to help how I can. And even today, I just met somebody that might want to do a project with me to help Armenia, and I'm eager to do that, even though I am officially retired.
Well, may the non-retired people work as eagerly and productively as you do in your quote unquote retirement. So it's been a pleasure, Barry. Thank you. It's great seeing you again. Any closing thoughts that you want to add before we end the session?
Well, my friends are very curious as to my trip here, and they're just so excited for me to come back here because they could see the excitement that I have.
Wonderful.
And so,
yeah, it's a remarkable journey, and I'm glad to have been a part of it myself. And yeah, on behalf of everyone here at AUA, thank you.
You're very welcome.